Cold calling has definitely made a comeback. It's helping people stand out in a very AI-driven, spammy message, emails, LinkedIn emails environment. It'll be peaks and troughs. People will get sick of cold calling again, and then cold calling will be dead, and then people will be more messaging, and vice versa. And I think we'll always see that kind of trend in that kind of stuff.
Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, founder, CEO of loads of things. RecTools.io, co-founder of RecCircle, co-founder of the Recruitment Curry Club, host of this wonderful podcast that we all tune into every week, and we thank you for that, by the way. Look, my guest today, you'll know him from LinkedIn, from his kind of rounds that he does at the Recruitment Agency Expo every time it's in town. You'll know him from their former podcast that they were doing. It's the Director of Sales and Marketing for itris. It's Paul Sangster. Paul, thank you so much for joining me.
Lovely intro, mate. Thank you very much. And yeah, pleasure to be on again, second time. So
this is our first time, and I wanted to apologise actually, because you made a journey from Chelmsford to Coventry in the old studio. It was a different time, it was a different setup, and all the rest of it. You had the displeasure of meeting my former business partner. And so
now sure looked after me very, very well, and
makes a change.
I was cursing you because you pulled a sickie on me.
I did indeed.
Look, that's what happens when you're busy like us. Like it catches up with you, right? And sometimes you just get hit hard by the man flu or something, and it takes you out. But
it did, mate. It did.
Yeah, and look, mate, for congratulations to you as well, mate, because obviously followed your journey for a long time, pretty much since you started out, and it's great to see where you've taken obviously RecTalk, RecTools, and all the other bits you're getting involved with. You did annoy our digital content creator with the Curry Club branding, which is very similar to the Corner podcast, but it serves all right for using Canva on that one. So you can't get annoyed. That's what it is.
We have somebody, James Whitelock, who is our Chief Marketing Officer, and I do that, and I would offend him, but the logo was out of my hands. That was all of them, and I think the first thing that he came up with was.
I feel honoured that we inspired it.
You can have that. You can absolutely have that. But that's. But do you know what? That's the beauty of using Canva, right? How many times do you see that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I had it recently.
And that's what I said. Lesson learned.
Yeah. No, I had it recently with a business who launches like an e-learning platform called RecLearn. I'll shout him out because actually Baron's a really nice guy. And I had he launched it, rebranded it, all the rest of it. And then I had about 4 people reach out to me going like, "Oh, are you involved with this thing with Baron Jeffrey?" So I was like, "No, why?" And he was like, "Look at this." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that looks incredibly like the RecTools logo." And we had a chat and stuff. And I was like, "Listen, mate, it's Canva. What I'm more gutted about for you is that you've paid thousands of pounds to a branding agency for them to do what I did in like half an hour on Canva." So
no. Yeah.
But
that was an awkward conversation.
I wanted to talk to you today, mate, about because your journey is an interesting one in that you've been at itris for sort of 13, coming on to 14 years. You started off as a business development executive, moved up to business development manager, and then somewhere along the way you got kind of lumbered with the marketing gig as well, right? And I'm a firm believer in social selling. I think social selling is the only way that sort of it should be done these days. Cold calling, I don't think has the success rate that it once had. I'm not saying it's dead. There's certainly a place for it, but I think that really the focus for a lot of businesses, certainly in the SaaS space and certainly in the tech space, has to be top of funnel stuff, right? So I wanted to kind of pick your brains on that, on the social selling side, the kind of the differences you see between your director of marketing hat and your director of sales hat, or actually it's just the one hat,
Yeah, it's definitely not. I wish it was. And there's other many hats that
I know.
I have a whole case of hats that I often have to put on. Back to your point. I think you're right. I think cold calling has definitely made a comeback because I think it's helping people stand out in a very AI-driven, spammy message, emails, LinkedIn emails environment. It's that kind of difference. And I think I had a guest on a podcast previously. We spoke about it, and I think it will kind of, it'll be peaks and troughs. people will get sick of cold calling again, and then cold calling will be dead, and then
Yeah.
people will be more messaging and vice versa. And I think we'll always see that kind of trend in that kind of stuff. I think for me, going back to when I first joined iTech, we didn't have a marketing team. We didn't do marketing. The CEO at the time's brother was outsourcing stuff and spending a fortune on print advertising was a thing back then, right? We used to get a terribly designed ad in the Recruiter magazine once a month, pay like 15 grand a year or something for the privilege, and it was just money up the wall. Nothing was being tracked. People used to read the magazine. It still is quite a good read, to be fair. There's a lot of good stuff in here. We obviously interested when they bring out things like the Hot 100, see how our clients are doing and prospects and all that kind of thing. Do really good awards, obviously, but the digital content was fairly new, I guess. LinkedIn, people were using LinkedIn when I first started, but people weren't putting the effort into creating informative, digital, decent content. So when that was kind of elevated in the industry, it was like, we kind of need to be doing some marketing. They're like, oh, you seem to know a lot about this. Why don't you do it?
Yeah.
So it was a shout out to an old colleague of mine, Ollie Silver, who's a dear friend. Still talk to him now. But we were back in the early days of iTech. It was kind of us. We were both very young. I think he was early 20s. I was mid 20s, and we're like, let's create some marketing, I guess. It's somewhat as marketing
along the way.
We need a blog. We were doing white papers, and we were starting to share and kind of learn, along the way. And we started to see a difference. And it's funny you mentioned cold calling, because cold calling is what we used to do all the time, right? So when I first joined as a business development executive, it was numbers, dials, phones, get on the phone, talk to people, which, I love. I still love today. I think people were a bit more receptive to it back then than they are nowadays. I would quite often phone a director of a recruitment company and have a 30-40 minute conversation with him, even though he wasn't in the market looking, just generally talking about, how you find in the industry, what's your tech stack look like? I see you doing well over here. How are you guys doing that? How are you managing this process? I've got a client over here that's struggling with compliance and stuff.
Why do you think people were more receptive to them? Do you think there was less of it happening so people weren't frustrated with it? Do you think it was more the sign of the times? People were happy to be more open?
I think people were just happier back then, mate. I think people were just, I don't know. Look, it was a good time in recruitment, for sure. And yeah, I think people were just, it was a different generation, I guess. It was a time where, you walk into, and there's still this now, so this is not me saying this doesn't exist, but you'd walk into any recruitment business, mid-market, which is where we kind of like to sit, and, successful, they're doing well, the boards are filling up, it's a buzzy environment, the culture in those businesses are really good. And I think that's just changed naturally from one global disaster to another, and financial crisis to another. That just changes over time. People prefer to work from home now, or certainly hybrid, so you don't necessarily get that culture and collaboration that you used to. And I think people are just busier. People, in order to run a successful business now, it's a lot harder than it probably was back then.
So there's more things to do, isn't there? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe it's because they haven't got the time, right? They haven't necessarily got the time to take a haul. But it always goes back to that. There's loads of old memes about it, where they're using square wheels to push a barrel, and you turn up with a circle wheel, and they're like, I haven't got time to talk to you, we've got to push this barrel. So it's like, but again, like back when I first started doing it, it was very much more, you could just phone and have a decent conversation. You wasn't necessarily phoning to pitch people your product or seeing whether they're reviewing, but actually building those relationships over a cold call was easier. I think now.
Do you think maybe consumer awareness has played a part in that then? So people are a lot more aware now of the tricks of the trade, right? So taking it right down to our industry, most candidates now know that a recruiter, if they ask you where are you interviewing, it's not because they're looking out for your best interests. It's because they're going to try and usher a candidate into that job, right?
Exactly.
Like candidates know that now. So I
Yeah.
wonder how much of it is down to the fact that we're in the information age. People are a lot more aware of what's going on now. But also people, you're like you said, people are a lot busier. So they're kind of like, just get to the point. And so then all of a sudden this kind of trend began of, I want you to make 100 phone calls a day, but I want you to pick up 10 vacancies a week. And so forget the shit chat, forget the niceties. Just, are you hiring, and do you want to use an agency, and are you going to use me? Is the closer? Do you know what I mean? And because that worked for a period of time, do you think maybe that's where kind of the cultural shift has started? Because you're absolutely right. I say to business owners and kind of my old team when I used to run a recruitment agency, and the guys I mentor, is that I still think that 90% of relationship building is shit chat. It is all the other stuff that you talk about, because people are only going to buy from you if they like you or if they feel they are like you. They're not going to buy from you for any other reason.
Yeah, 100%. And I reckon our conversations, mate, the times we've spoken, 98% of it is chat. That's maybe that little bit is then. So you're gonna renew on RecTalk and say, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because the thing is, you know what I'm talking. You know why I'm calling. I know why you're calling. That kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
It just becomes it doesn't need to be said, right? What does need to be said is, if I'm going to spend money with somebody, be it you or this person, am I going to enjoy the conversations, or am I going to duck every phone call that comes through because I'm like, oh fuck this guy again?
Yeah. And that's where trust is just huge, right? So this is where we then started to build our, we wanted to be that brand that people trust.
Yeah.
Trusted to not just give our good software and good customer support, but actually truthful, informative content. And that's kind of what I've always built our marketing around. So back in the early days when we did initial white papers, they've had a lot of renews and we've added to them and stuff over time. That to us wasn't about, hey, look at us, we're a really good CRM and we offer really good support. It was, the industry's getting this wrong. They need advice on how to do this better. We're in a good position to give that advice. We've had X amount of years experience and so on. And we've got all these really great people that work here. Let's sit down with, our head of development and talk about this. Let's sit down with our head of migrations and talk about this. And we'll put all that into a nice little playbook, is what they're more called now. So it was always about that. It was always about brand awareness, but also trust.
Yeah, you were doing what kind of LinkedIn gurus nowadays call thought leadership, right?
Yeah.
Position yourselves as, listen, we're not here to tell you how great we are. We're here to help you. And by de facto, you'll know how great we are because no one else is doing that for you.
Yeah. And it's then getting people to look at that, right? Because unless you look at that, you don't know that it's not just someone ramming their product or their services down your throat. So it was about getting that out, obviously, across the right channels. It's built into our process now, through obviously automated, sort of outreach and stuff to prospects, but also with clients. So when a client comes on board with us, we feed them this kind of information to help them. It makes our lives easier, of course, if they know what to expect coming up through a project. And this is that it kind of evolved over the years, from blog posts and white papers to obviously more recently, up until last year, it was, video content.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of it, for me, that initial series of our podcast was very much, let's give people a look behind the scenes of a CRM company, because no one was really doing that at the time. It's a bit more now. But so we did an episode on like behind the demo. And it, like, to me, that was giving people an insight. Well, when you click that book a demo button, what's happening behind the scenes? What should you expect? What should you prepare for? Just to give people that bit of a heads up. And also, it was like we would have people book a demo on our website. And I think at the time we were getting maybe like 10, 15 inbound leads a week, which was great. And we would contact people sometimes within 20 minutes, sometimes within an hour or whatever. But let's say within 2 hours, we'd reach out to these people and they're like, what do you mean you want a conversation? I just want to see the system. And we're like, well, we kind of want to qualify whether we're going to be the right fit for you, right? We're a CRM supplier.
We're not selling
we're
to
not
everybody.
good.
We're
not, of course. And that's the same with any service, right? It's not just software. That's any service. You know, if you're a recruitment business and sometimes I've got a job. But this is what kind of job? Yeah, what's your budget? What's your, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, in an ideal world, you're absolutely right. But in the reality of cases, I would argue sort of 70% of the time, that's all they care. I've got a vacancy on. Okay, but what's the vacancy? True. Is it fillable? Is this going to take... It doesn't matter. I've got a vacancy. So for them and those sorts of people, the mindset is, listen, I've asked for a demo. Just give me the demo. Why do you want to qualify me for?
And this is why we did a demo video as like an overview. Yeah. Well, look, if you don't want to have an initial conversation, or you don't want to invest the time, that's wrong, by the way. People that don't want to invest the time in talking to the supplier to actually qualify, because all that supplier, any supplier, but us, and I'd ingrain this in the sales guys all the time. It's, we need to qualify the shit out of it, basically. So the same as when you talked about earlier when I was a recruiter. So before I started at itris, I did recruitment for a couple of years, and I worked for a finance recruitment in the city, Cornwall itself. I remember it was John Price. Shout out to John Price. He's still around now. I think he played Martin on EastEnders from like the age of 2 to the age of 5 or something random like that. Really nice guy. And he taught me that, look, when you look at a CV, again, you're not just looking at like this and this, but actually you're looking at where they've worked before. And on this call, you want to find out who their line manager was. Yeah. So then we can then see if we've now got a perfect profile for candidates that he likes looking at, right? And what you said earlier in terms of, where else are you interviewing, all that kind of stuff. It's all information gathering. But a lot of that we do here, obviously we may want to find out what systems you're looking at and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's only, the qualification of it isn't any more than making sure we're a good fit to tailor the demo more to you. Because I can give you a generic demo video that's 20 minutes long and it'll give you an overview. And you know what? If you're a small startup, that might be fine. But actually, what we're also willing to do is spend 30, 40 minutes on a decent telephone call to a real person talking about your business, what your pain points are. Because sometimes they don't know what they don't know, right? So I always say to my guys, unless we're asking them the right questions, they're not always forthcoming with that information. Yeah. And unless you go to the next layer, so Nitin, you're saying to me, we need to be faster with compliance. Oh, great, we've got a compliance module. Yeah. That's like the easy bit. Well, why? That's go to the next level. Well, why? How many compliance officers you've got? What's your process around getting documentation? What sort of automation process have you got in place there? If you've got people scanning copies of driving license and sending them, and then someone's got to go and get that and attach it. Of course, it's a slow, archaic process, and lots can go wrong. So look, we can automate that. So that's the next bit. How do we do that? Who needs access to X, Y, and Z? And after 30, 40 minutes, we're going to get a really good understanding of how our business works. We're going to be, because we're not just selling software here, we're selling a service, and half of the time it's also a change management service as well. And a lot of businesses pay third parties, and as a lot of CRMs, or bad mouthing anyone today, don't worry, but a lot of CRMs will insist you go and use another third party company to manage your process and your project for you, or be involved at the early project stage to iron all this stuff out. Well, we can do this. Yeah. We've got a lot of experience, myself, like you said, 14 years experience of working with recruitment businesses, analyzing what they're doing, changing their tech stack, rolling out data migration projects, training, getting user adoption, again, feeding them this information to help them learn. It's all change management.
This is where the marketing element comes in, though, right? Because the fact is, you have a process in terms of how you like to sell or position your product to your prospects, right? But if you're getting pushback, but when you're getting pushback, the reality is that that's usually kind of embedded in some level of bad experience somewhere else, right? So,
Sure. Yeah.
look, will you just show me the system? I don't want to have all of this conversation with you because you're going to go through everything, and then you're going to try and upsell me on this and upsell me on that, and then you're going to try and do this, and then you're going to try and do that. I'm fed up of it. I've spoken to 6 different CRM vendors. You're all doing the same thing, right? Or
I love that comment.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Or it's a case of, like, you know what? No, you're going to sell me the dream, and then when you show me the system, it's going to look like some old MS-DOS based piece of shit and garbage, and I'm just going to be like, "What the fuck is this? You've wasted my time." Because the problem we have is, as recruitment business owners, we're incredibly busy, and we don't value our time, and we don't monetize our time effectively. So then, when we do have to, run or work on the business rather than in the business, it feels like a waste of time when because one can argue that actually having an exploration conversation with any vendor that you're about to spend, hundreds of pounds a month per user on for your business, there is no such thing as wasted time, right? Having an exploration conversation that ends in, actually, do you know what? On this occasion, I don't think there's a match here. That's not a waste of time. But because recruitment business owners that work in the business and on the business at the same time, they struggle with that time management piece so much. For them, it's just, can you just show me a demo of the product so I can look at it and be like, oh, that looks good. Okay, now I'll, and that's when I think marketing comes in, because the RecTech vendors out there that have got the marketing element down well are the ones that doing what you like you guys have got on your RecTools listing. All your social channels are working, or you've got your product demo in there, you've got a rec perk in there. So do you know what? If there is a customer out there that wants to go through the self-service process, that's great. Here's all the shit for you to look at yourself. Then you can engage in our sales process, and that qualifies things out. But then you've got marketing storyteller content. Here's the reasons why we do things the way we do. Here's things that you need to be considering when you are taking on your, where you're investing for the first time, or investing properly in a CRM for your business because you've seen experienced a period of growth. That's where kind of the marketing thing gets it right. Now, you're in a fortunate position because you've got sales and marketing under the same effectively job, right? Where do you think the disconnect happens between sales and marketing? Because I see a lot of, especially RecTech vendors, you have the sales teams doing one thing and you have the marketing teams doing something else. And you kind of think, Jesus, are these two even talking to each other?
Yeah. And I think I think that's what it is half the time. I think they're just treated as two completely separate departments.
Yeah.
And it's like the salespeople's view of the marketing department is, obviously they don't necessarily have targets or KPIs. Now, some of them might, in terms of lead generation and ROI on investment and all that kind of stuff, of course. But very much, the majority of the time, the salespeople are, they're just, it's the old thing, isn't it? Like, they're using crayons in marketing. They're just doing content for social media and all of this. The fun stuff is, I suppose, what they would see it as.
Yeah.
So I think maybe quite often it's that relationship between sales and marketing departments, not necessarily individuals. And obviously you've got to think, if you had a team of 20, 30 salespeople, if you're mid-market recruitment business, let's say, you might have one, maybe 2 people in marketing if you're lucky.
At best, yeah.
So integrating that, obviously it's a broader topic across the whole business, about if you're having regular company meetings, letting know what people do. So here we have obviously weekly, quarterly meetings that are various different things, just so everyone's got a really good idea of what people are doing, why they're doing it, and what the result is and how that benefits them. Obviously from doing sales and marketing, the guys get on so well, and we're basically one team. That's we're seen as, when I present at the quarterly company meeting, I present for sales and marketing, and it's the sales and marketing team. It's not the sales team and the marketing team, because one hand's feeding the other. Over here we're generating the content, building the brand awareness and the trust, which ultimately is bringing people into that funnel and that sales pipeline. The salespeople really see the value because they've seen it firsthand. I'm quite lucky. I've got people like Jordan that have been here 10 years. So he's seen what it was like 10 years ago, And then he's seen when we put a really good bit of content out, or a podcast episode, or a white paper, we market a new feature. So we did like a DocuSign thing recently. We did itris X launch, which we'll talk about in a bit. They see the increase in inbound leads.
Yeah.
And that's better for them because there's less cold calling. They've got more quality, warm leads to work on, and all of a sudden their diary just gets filled up. They're like, this is great, so they work with us and we get them involved in the content. Obviously, Jordan's done, a lot of episodes with me on the corner. Laura, who's our digital content creator, has as well. We've got customer service involved, or customer success, for various topics. And then not necessarily, some of those said about the initial series of the podcast, giving people a peek behind the scenes. A lot of that was, it was just exposing our business. Here's how we do stuff. We're not saying that it's necessarily the right thing to do all the time, but actually, here's our take on customer success. Here's our take on how you should manage a project. Here's what to expect behind a demo, all this kind of stuff. We did one on employee engagement, training and learning, and all of that stuff. And it wasn't really to generate loads of leads. That was what you were saying earlier. People are doing that self-exploratory sort of sales process, and they want to go, they're sitting in their bedroom in their pants and look at software without having a Teams meeting or even having a phone call. Well, you can go and do that. And you know what? You can come and look at itris, and we've got no secrets. You can look, you can see and hear the real people that actually work here talking about their experiences with projects, experiences with data migrations, offering advice on what to look out for. What's the worst things they've seen? What's the common mistakes that people make when doing X, Y, and Z? What should a mid-market company be considering when budgeting for things like training or learning, within their business? And that shouldn't just be CRM. That should be,
it's across the board.
That should be any tech, any tech that you're doing.
Yeah, and look, in an ideal world, you want them coming off an exploration call with you guys, going, do you know what? I'll probably need to review other things that I'm spending money on, but you've set a bar and set an expectation. So if I go on to, if I'm changing my job distribution tool, for example, and I go on to somewhere where I can just click to buy, and there's no conversation, there's no, here, watch the video, here's our product, buy it now, I'm probably less likely to engage with that, because now I've seen the value in going through a proper consultative chat and going, actually, is this product right for me? And is this the one that I should be buying?
Yeah. And what we often get people that come to us that have seen all of our content already. And do you know what? I've seen this video. I saw the demo video. It looks perfect. I want to now take that to the next level in terms of getting under the skin of it. I've also watched your podcast on this, or I read your white paper on that. I saw the reviews you're posting from this client who I often come up against. So I know they use you and stuff. So they've done their research then at that point before then coming to you, and that's good. That's a good one.
The reality is that's how people buy. We have this real thing in recruitment.
Not all the time.
No.
Some people just click a button and then moan when you call them.
But to get to that click a button and buy point, look, I'll never say there's no place for cold calling, but. I can tell you, and I buy a lot of shit, and I'm a very impulsive person. I have never bought something from a cold call, not knowing anything about the person or the product or it's never happened, and it never will happen, because I firmly believe that the majority of people buy based on a subconscious of like, oh yeah, no, I have heard of this. I've seen this before somewhere, or they will go, that sounds interesting. Let me look into it. And the stats and stuff that I was looking at not long ago, it was something like, 80% of podcast listeners will research a product that they hear about on a podcast, right? That's consumer behavior. People will, people buy based on emotion, and then they justify that emotion with facts and stats. That's the buying journey and the psychology of sales. But for some reason in recruitment, we just don't seem to have got to that point yet where we accept that, do you know what? before I make this call to Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, and say, hey, I can help you fill this vacancy that you're recruiting for, they need to have seen something from me, heard something from me, and noticed something about me at some point or some stage, because that's going to help soften the call and create this air of familiarity. And that's where, for me, that's where marketing comes in, right? That's where things like personal brand come in. That's where things like recruiters should all be posting on LinkedIn regularly. And recruiters should absolutely not be posting advice to other recruiters, right? That bit I find bizarre when you're like, when you're a recruiter, an active recruiter, senior consultant, principal consultant, or whatever, and you're giving other recruiters advice on how to recruit. It just seems stupid, right? You're in a niche. Your network should really be the people that you want to be recruiting and working with as a client, and you should be posting to them and talking to them and commenting and engaging with them, so that when you do make that phone call, how many times I rarely make outbound calls. A lot of my stuff is inbound, but when I do, or when I meet people for the first time, the number of times people will say to me, I see your stuff on LinkedIn all the time. I see you all over my LinkedIn feed. And I'm like, yeah, that's by design. It's not an accident. That's not, I'm just fortunate. The algorithm loves me. No, I'm thinking strategically about this, so that when we do talk business, you already feel like you either like me or are like me, because that's the two reasons someone's going to buy from you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think more recruitment businesses are doing the right content now, and we've seen some of our clients over the last couple of years, hopefully influenced by people like us, Nitin, to actually, that's the kind of content we want to create. That's the kind of, because podcasts, they've always been around, but they were never as popular as they have been the last few years. 10, 15 years ago. They just weren't. And I don't know whether that's because people didn't necessarily have easy access to it, or you had to have a Spotify account or whatever to be listening, or whatever it was. But I saw a lot of businesses set up podcasts, and it didn't really go anywhere. But now I see people doing it, and people are really interested in the content. And I've got we've got clients like LHI Group. Another one who's done one recently, More People. Shout out to those guys. Have been a client of ours pretty much from day one, and they've just had their 25-year anniversary. So I think we've been around 27 years this year, which is from a brand loyalty and trust point of view, being around in the industry with a brand and not have been diluted, let's say, over 27 years for us is a massive achievement. But for those guys, again, they work in a very niche sector. This is More People, FMCGs, it's all food hygiene and processing and stuff. And they've started doing it really well. They've started getting guests on, talking about obviously the industry, which is then creating content to target who their ideal client is. So I've watched a couple of their episodes recently. It's good. And if you're in that, if you're in FMCG and you're a business and you're looking for a recruiter, they're serving up the good content. So you might not be recruiting now, but when you're recruiting in 6 months' time, you're like, what recruitment agencies do I know?
It's about being top of
recruit
mind, right?
in my industry.
Exactly.
There we go.
This is exactly why 5 years ago we used to send so many mailers, right? Every day, send a mail shot. Why? They might not be recruiting today, but then you'll be top of mind. Okay, cool. So take that same mentality of being top of mind and put that into a different form of content or a different form of outreach, because we all know that email deliverability is getting even harder, week by week, month by month, right? And people are fed up of the spam. People are fed up to the back teeth of spam and AI-generated spam. And so you've got to kind of move with the times. And I think businesses that are doing video and doing video well are the ones that are going to become ahead leaps and bounds, because they're the ones that are going to be top of mind, which then feeds into your sales team, which makes, nobody wants to make a cold call. Nobody enjoys making cold call after cold call after cold call.
There's a
People
couple
enjoy
of people I've
warming.
met that love it, but yeah, they're few and far
They
between.
might like the challenge, right? They might like the challenge,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you gave them the opportunity to listen, I can either let you make 100 cold calls, or you can make 100 warm calls, where the client's going to kind of know who you are, or kind of know a little bit about what your business does. I'm sure they'd rather talk to and sell to those people, right?
Mm. And that's what spurred us to create a marketing team, really, because the amount of cold calls we were doing and people like, I've never heard of you.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, we've been around so long, and we supply these really good companies. You know, even when I first started, you know, I think LHI Group, they weren't as big as they are now, but you know, there was still 150. You know, we still had enterprise level clients.
Yeah.
They were like, never heard of you. We're like, oh, why not? Did you not see our printed ad in the Recruiter magazine? No, I bloody didn't. So it was like, right, we need to, you know, and now
Probably
if
need to spend this
if
15
we're
grand
cold
somewhere
calling,
else.
well, people know who we are now, and as
Yeah.
much as some of the big players in the industries would hate to admit it, because we're very much the underdog, but we're very good at what we do. We've got very experienced staff. We always go for quality over quantity, from marketing through to the actual product, and we're very innovative, man. I mean, we'll talk about Itris X, which is our
Yeah.
latest
Please do. You launched that a few
product.
weeks back, right? So tell us about that.
Yeah. So mate, it was huge, and again, it was born out of. So we've always, you know, when I first started, I think the initial product was like Itris 2000 or Itris 7 was there or thereabouts. Itris 8 was like the new kid on the block. You know, application based software. 90% of the industry were hosting CRMs themselves on servers and that kind of stuff. And then it obviously started to shift. You know, Bullhorn came to the market. A lot of web-based products started popping out. So we needed a shift. Now, we didn't have the expertise at the time to do a full web-based product. So we did a hybrid product. So it's application. So Itris 9, which has been out. I launched it in 2020. Very successful launch campaign considering the circumstances. We had a massive uptake from existing clients as well as new business. It's been a really popular product. We've always improved on it, you know. So since its launch in 2020, God, not 2000, that was too long ago, 2020. We've done updates to it like every 3 months, and a lot of that is born out of customer feedback, as well as that sales feedback and the marketing feedback as well. So again, one of the benefits of having that sales and marketing team together, it's like we're not just giving leads to sales. It's what's happening with those leads, where's the ROI coming from. You know, we really track everything back, and you know, we're really data driven business. And a lot of the leads that we were producing, we were unable to close because of either the functionality in Itris 9 or the deployment. So Itris 9 was not Mac compatible. I had to have a third-party software, and obviously a lot of people use Macs. So that was always a barrier to close. And that was, you know, often when you have that initial qualification call, they would be qualified straight out because we don't want to waste your business time on an hour, 2 hour demo if we know it's not going to be suitable for you. So a few years ago, we were like, right, we need to do something about this. One of the mistakes we made with Itris 9 was promising it to our clients and the industry far too early. And we went down a road. At the time, the leaders in the business were like, this is the right way to go. And there was a few people internally that were like, we're not sure on that. You know, should we? But no, we're the boss. We're going to go this way. So we were like, okay. We got to a point where we were like, this is wrong. We had to go back and do it all again. So we had promised clients Itris 9 for probably 2 years before it actually came out, which massively damaged our reputation with some of our customers, as well as prospects we were talking to in the market. Like, because at the time we were, as a sales and marketing team, like, this stuff's coming and it's going to be good. And then a year later, oh, that stuff you were talking about, is it there yet? Like, no, it's not there yet. So lesson learned, we've had our heads down for Itris X for a long time. And what we have produced, obviously we're pretty proud of, is a full web-based application that has got 27 years worth of CRM experience built into it. And that's from functionalities and workflows to customization to listening to customers for all that time. And actually, here's what's like, we took all the stuff that was good about itris, all of the itrises, because you never want to dilute that. And it's not like we're using old code. It's like we did that well in 8, we did that great in 9, so let's make it even better.
It's a must-have in 10.
In X. Because the amount of feedback we get through all of the various channels is enormous. We have a suggestions meeting once a month here where we look at all the suggestions coming in for clients. And again, rather than it being like just people emailing in or going through a support desk, in 9, we actually built a button in, suggestions button in, where people could fill out a form, because it helped us manage it better and it gave us direction. So it wasn't just like, what do you want? Why do you want it? Why is this important to your business? What do you like about this is currently in there, all this kind of stuff. And it helped us collate that information so we can say, right, this is a really good suggestion. Actually helped us make a lot of quick wins with itris 9. So it was like, right, they just want an extra column here, we can get that in the next release, right? Yeah, do it. There's 5 customers that have asked for that, let's get it in. So again, that customer satisfaction has always been the 2 highest things for us. The people at itris are the most important people to this business. The next is the customers, above any of the product or anything like that. So keeping those customers at the forefront of our mind and keeping them happy and giving them what they want. So we've got some people that have been on itris 9 now for 5 years, and they're already looking at the next thing. But the next thing ain't really out there in terms of CRM. The next thing, a lot of the CRMs that are on the market now have obviously been around a long time. A lot of them don't have regular updates. They might introduce new integrations and partners, or they'll go and buy another company out, and now that's one of their products, from their marketplace or whatever. But we have a lot of there's people that we've been talking to the last 2-3 years who've been looking at systems and can't find what they want. So itris X for us is it's the same as 9 was, really. It's giving the people what they want. It looks cool, man. It's got dark.
I can't wait to see it.
You put dark mode on it, and you can configure the dashboards. And again, a lot of the stuff that's in there is born out of not having to have loads of suppliers, right? Because quite often you have a CRM, then you need a supplier that does this, the data analytics stuff, this. So you end up with 6 suppliers just to run your business. Now, there's still stuff we're not going to do, stuff like I mentioned earlier, DocuSign, so like the e-signature stuff. No point in us reinventing the wheel. But actually, we strategically aligned ourselves with a lot of the suppliers in the industry, as you know, to be able to supply a lot of the stuff off the shelf. So you come to us, you pay us, you want the deep CV parsing, you want the AI algorithms in there, you want that AI automation, you want the slice and dice data, dashboards, reports, you want all that cool stuff. Yeah, we'll give you all of that. Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
What I love is that we've been talking for 43 minutes, and that's the first time we've mentioned
Jesus
AI.
Christ.
Yeah.
That's only because people are asking for it, mate. I'm very much AI's obviously it's here to stay.
Yeah.
And I think you've probably had a lot of discussions of how people are getting it wrong.
Yeah.
I think people are really reliant on it to try and run their business. And again, that automated outreach, again, I understand it to a degree, but a lot of businesses are just stripping that personal element out of their actual service. And it's being detrimental to a lot of businesses, I think. And it's the same as, it's the same as spammy emails that you mentioned. I mean, I've worked with businesses over the years. They're like, oh, we keep getting blacklisted. So how many emails are you sending? Oh, only like, I don't know. I think we send about 20,000 a day. It's like, are you kidding? No wonder you're getting blacklisted. Jesus. How are you doing that?
Even stricter, right?
Yeah.
I did a LinkedIn Live with Ben Fielding, where the rules had changed literally overnight. Microsoft 365 had gone, nope. It used to be 10,000 a day per personal email, per individual email address. Now it's 2,500.
2.5. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And you think how much that's changed just from the changes that Yahoo and Google made beginning of last year, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To that now. So in the last, what's that, 18 months?
Because they've got to, the problem is they have to battle. It's not even spam anymore. I call it sludge. Like,
Sludge.
do you know what I mean? It's just slow.
You've got to get through it.
Yeah, just slow moving, useless crap. You know, I don't need to. Like, I had somebody message me the other day and was like, "Oh, I'm just testing out a couple of features on my system." He's a client of mine. He's like, "Can I have a couple of your email addresses?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine, but don't sign me up to a mailing list." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, no, it's just that when I put it into HubSpot, it might automatically do that." And I was like, "Well, you need to fucking stop that because." I haven't given you consent for this. Do you know what I mean? And this happens a lot with a lot of people that I speak to, or they message me for the first time, and I get engagement from. They get engagement from me on something or another. All of a sudden, I'm in a mailing list, and it's like, listen, I'm not going to buy from that. I'm not going to fucking buy from that. And all you're doing is clogging up my inbox and pissing me off. I actually had a guy. I've got like an old Hotmail email address, and it's like my Hotmail one that I've had for like 15, nearly 20 years, maybe 20 years. And I went through this period of time where I was like, I'm just going to unsubscribe and just keep deleting all these emails. I'm going to start unsubscribing. And I did. And for about a week, it cleared it out. And I didn't have as many emails coming through my personal email. And then all of a sudden, it all started again. And I was like, you can't beat this. You just cannot beat it. You buy something online, you click a button that says, I accept your terms of business. And all of a sudden, that means I can email you 6 times a day. And you can't do anything about it. You're like,
and this is why I have multiple, I have multiple devices for obviously work and personal, because the amount of cold call / emails I get is it's a lot more than it ever used to be. But the emails, again, all that's doing is it's diluting your brand and it's diluting your trust, because all people are going to see you is a pain in the ass, right? Because I'm not going to use them because they've annoyed me for the last 6 months.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting. I had a guy who has developed this like AI dialer thing, right? And he was dead keen. He wanted to show it me at the Recruitment Agency Expo, and I won't name him because he's a nice guy. I don't like his product. I don't agree with his product. And he was like, "Oh, can I come on the podcast for like 10 minutes and just demo the product to you live?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on then, let's do that." And I thought it was dreadful, as in it was. I wouldn't deal with it, right? And my take on it is, if I won't buy something, then there's at least another person out there in the world who won't buy something, right? And it got me worried, because I was like, this is where where a lot of recruitment business owners think that the value is, right? On this AI dialer that's generic monotone voice that cuts you off. It was literally ring, 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 ring. I answered it, and before I could even say hello, it went, it was like, "Hi, I'm calling from the agency. I want to, are you still looking for a job?" And then it goes quiet, and I'm like, "Yes." "What kind of job are you looking for?" And I'm like, "Project manager." "What's your day rate that you're looking for?" "Like £500 to £600 a day." "And what notice period are you on?" 3 weeks. "Okay, I'll pass that information on and we'll get a recruiter to call you back." And it hung up before I could say anything, and then it populates this little spreadsheet. And he was there like, "It's good, isn't it?" And I was like, "No, that's dreadful.
Yeah,
like, that is sludge. Like, that's going to piss people off." But then this person,
some people will like it. In terms of it, I think the sad thing about that is, let's take recruitment businesses, but any business, but recruitment businesses. I know some recruitment business owners will look at that and be like, "Wow, we've got to have that." And others will be in our camp, which is like, "Wow, no way would I ever use something like that." And it's mad that there's this almost complete divide. We see businesses using AI and automation really well, but they use it to enhance what they're currently doing, not to replace what they're currently doing. And those people that are looking to replace what they're currently doing I get why they're doing it, because they want to be faster and they want to do better. But all I see it doing to the businesses I've worked with that have done that, I've just seen it damage their brand reputation, damage their relationship with their staff. Because they keep throwing these tools, and again, if you've got a business of 30, 40 consultants,
You're constantly
10 of them, 20 of them love it, the other 20 hate it, well, then you shouldn't be doing it. Like, you've got to get everyone behind it, because those people that hate it are going to be like, do you know what? I don't like this, and that's not the way I want to work. No. And I don't want to then talk to someone that's spoken to an AI bot and it's fed me all this information. So they end up leaving. I've seen businesses lose really good people out of bad tech implementation.
Here was my wild. I was like, so take LinkedIn. LinkedIn were like, we can use AI job advert writer when you post a job on LinkedIn, or like when you send a message, a personalized message. And I remember I was at RecFest, and I got chatting to one of the guys from LinkedIn, who's like one of their senior account managers and stuff. And he was like, "So what do you think of the new AI features?" And I was like, "I think they're shit." And he was like, "Oh, well, all right. What would you have done?" And I was like, "Here's a wild concept. You could put in a layer of AI under your jobs section, right? So if I, as a recruitment business owner or a hiring business, have got a job live and there's 300 applications, and I've selected the 5 or 6 that I want to speak to and take forward, that you could have used AI to say, we'll auto-reject all of these for you with some level of personalization to tell them, really sorry on this occasion, Paul, you haven't been selected for interview. It's a really competitive market right now. Please don't stop this from, just don't allow this to discourage you from applying in future. Right? And he was like, oh, that's really interesting. I was like, because do you know how much brand damage it does when people, and how many candidates I speak to that say, oh yeah, well, I never heard back from them. I'd never work there. I know I applied for them 3 years ago. I never heard back from them. That kind of thing. This is an ongoing thing. So you've got the tool and the skill to eradicate an issue in an industry, which is lack of candidate feedback. That's a big issue that almost every candidate has complained about through, the last 20 years. But rather than sort that problem out, you want to use this tech to put more candidates into process. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. It boggles my mind. And then when you've got people like the AI dialer. Anyway, he messaged me a couple of weeks back and was like, "Oh, when are you going to put the episode out?" I was like, "I'm just not, mate." Like, and he took it well, and I was like, "Look, we're not. I just
don't believe if I can't.
But more importantly,
good on you.
I don't think you realise how bad that came across, and there will be people that'll be like, "Oh wow, that's amazing," but there's going to be more people that are going to look at it and go, "That's a pile of shit. I can't believe this guy's trying to sell this." You know what I mean?
And for him, I think he needs to be careful of not pitching that to everyone. Like, don't stand up at the recruitment agency expo and show the industry, because it might do more damage than good. But actually, for you, in terms of your marketing, you need to target those people who are interested in that. So look at people who are adopting similar sort of AI technologies, or have got really bad reviews on Trustpilot for email spamming, because
it's really funny, because he actually is there's somebody I know who's kind of revamping their sort of their little project that they did, and he's actually working with them, and that's exactly the kind of people they are. High, stack them high, sell them cheap, kind of like old school. And I was like, there you go, you found your tribe. Stick there, you'll be all right. You know what I mean? But mate, I wish you guys all the best of luck in the world with itris X. Not S,
thank
X.
you, mate. Thank you.
It sounds incredible. I can't wait to get a demo on it. We do obviously LinkedIn and YouTube lives. So let's do one of those for like a quick 15-minute run through of the actual product itself. You can show us some of the key features and stuff.
Mate, that'd be cool. I know you know Jordan. You've met Jordan. I know he's keen to be doing some more LinkedIn live stuff as well. So I'll get him to reach out to you and get that up. But obviously, if anyone's interested in looking at the latest version of itris X, you know where to find us.
That's it.
Hopefully.
Mate, I want to thank you for this. Studio's looking
nice
great.
one, buddy.
I'm looking forward to you guys reinvigorating the podcast again. And
which one? Yeah, again, once we were talking before, weren't we? But once my desk is a bit clearer and my mind, I want to refocus, relaunch that. Obviously, you've given us some sound advice along the way, so thank you for that. We've learned a lot in terms of the first couple of series, and I want to when we do the next sort of round of it, because unlike you, I can't make it my full-time job. I'm needed in other places, but
I don't know how the fuck I manage this, mate.
doing it. I know we didn't get much time to talk about our podcast journey today, but maybe we could do that another time.
100%,
but
100%.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. And yeah, congrats again. What was your, how many subscribers you got now? Probably be a bit more by the time this goes out, but
50,000, mate. 50,000.
Did that? And do you get a plaque for that? Yeah.
Say again.
You got a little plaque for? Is that a plaque behind you?
My mates might have made it for me rather than
quality, mate. They're the kind of mates you need. Yeah.
You only get a plaque at 100,000, and I just as much as I'd like to, I don't think there's 100,000 recruiters out there that will want to listen to a recruitment podcast. But we'll see. I mean, we're
who knows?
As of recording, we're at 55,000.
Awesome, mate. That's really
Watch this
and
space.
Again, I've loved watching your journey.
Thank you, mate.
We always really like talking to you and bumping into you and stuff, mate. I'll try and get along to one of the curry clubs. Now I'm over the branding thing at some point. But I'll talk again soon, mate.
Mate, 100% appreciate it, guys. That's all from us. If you guys want to book in for a demo, learn more about itris, connect with Paul, all the links will be in the description below. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, doing all the cool shit that you guys do, helping grow this channel. We appreciate it very, very much. We'll see you again. New episodes drop every Wednesday and every Friday. See ya. There we go. That was good.
Nice one, buddy. That went really quick.